This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host Keith Angle on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk. Today, it's Are You Serious? With myself and my co-host, the Mad New Yorker, Carlos Chavez, who will be with us in a moment. Hopefully. How are we all doing today? Another exciting week last week in sports. The NCAA tournament coming down to its final legs here with the Final Four this weekend. We're going to talk today about some Final Four stories. We'll make our picks. We'll talk about Coach K's run, the ACC's rebirth here a little bit, Jay Wright, where I think he stands among the coaches today, Kansas, and, the cloud that's been over them. We'll also talk about St. Peter's run, where that stands in history as the biggest storylines and NCAA history, and maybe a little bit of winners and losers outside of that. We'll also talk some football. We got to talk about the Bucs. Tampa Bay. Is there drama in Tampa Bay, or is there some big mystery here about Arians and Todd Bowles and Tom Brady? I don't know. We'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about Bobby Wagner. We'll talk about a little more about Baker Mayfield and the Browns, and we'll take your comments, of course, as well. Hopefully, again, Carlos will join me here in a few minutes. In the meantime, I'll say good morning to Dave Guyette. How are you today, Dave? Good to see you. Hopefully, you're having a good day and you're happy with your Bills off season so far. We can touch on any questions you might have there. Yes, 7 days to opening day. Good point, Dave. We will have a Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have an in-depth look at the new Major League Baseball season, including long looks at the Yankees and the Mets. I'll be joined by my resident MLB guru, Mr. and loyal follower of the show, Drew Ehrlich. We'll be on Roku Live. We'll be on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We'll be on live next Tuesday. I believe that's the can I do my math? I believe that's the 5th of April. Hopefully I'm right. I'll put a promo up for that very soon. So, yes, Major League Baseball about us. And next Friday, Carlos and I will be concentrating heavily on the New York teams as well. Good morning to you, Alan. Yes, Todd Bowles is the head coach, which we'll dive into here a bit later. As I said, we'll dive into that whole Tampa Bay situation. We'll get started probably with the NCAA today. And as I speak, the Mad New Yorker has arrived. Good morning, Carlos.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How's things there in the big city?
Oh, man, it's crazy. This weather is so inconsistent. It matches the teams that play here.
Well, it's funny. You're right. And we will get into it. It's funny. We haven't talked any NBA since we started. And you and I have clashed on the NBA more than anything probably since we started interacting. But I guess once the season's over, we'll do a post-mortem on the NBA and the Knicks and the Nets, who are making a little run. But today we're going to concentrate, I think, on the NCAA tournament, as I said, and some of the NFL stories that have broken. And is there drama and mystery in Tampa Bay? We'll talk about all of that. But let's dive first, Carlos, into the NCAA. We had all these,
brackets busted.
We had all these brackets busted. This is commonplace. I mean, there are times where George Mason gets in, a VCU gets in, a Butler gets in. But we have all these upsets. And this is what the networks love this stuff, I think. They love all the upsets early, but they get the blue bloods at the end. And even though Carolina's an 8 seed, you can't deny that there's 4 blue blood programs in the Final Four here this year.
Right. It kind of seems like set up by the NCAA because of all this transfer portal. They want to give these teams a leg up. But it is what it is. You got the 4 best teams remaining, right? They played out to get to the championship run right now for the Final Four. I don't feel like Duke and UNC are deep enough, but heck, we're gonna see that tomorrow, right? So
yeah, the team that's not deep enough right now, and we'll talk more about it, is Villanova. I mean, they only played 6 men to begin with,
right?
Pretty much, and now one of those 6 is out for the tournament in Ronald Moore, and we'll talk more about that as well.
They got age on their side though, and they got previous experience, so I think they're one up on Duke and UNC at the moment. Because good morning, Bob. How you doing? Because you're looking at a team that you think has one of the best coaches in what we say in the NCAA, which you're correct. He is one of the best coaches in the NCAA, and I think he's gonna. I think that team has a better chance of doing a next man up, situation than any other team that's playing right now. So Villanova, I think, will be okay. They just need to play, right? These kids need to be on the court and they need to play.
Yeah, and Kansas, we'll get into the game itself.
No, Kansas is a sneaky team, right?
And they're deep, and they can throw just athlete after athlete out there. So it'll be interesting.
Athlete, they got shooters. Like everybody on the team can shoot threes. Like,
yeah,
coughing. It's crazy.
Yeah. Let's talk. And again, let's go back to you. You made a comment earlier that we've got the 4 best teams. We've got a Final Four. And I guess we'll start there. Do we have the 4 best teams? I think we do. Carolina, to me, right now is one of the 4 best teams in the country. The way they played the last, month plus, I think they're certainly worthy of this lofty perch.
Yeah, definitely. They are the 4 best teams. They've proved it. We can compare them as far as age and experience, where we have Duke and UNC as the youngest teams that are in the championship and making a run, which, having a coach like Coach K and even Hubert Davis doing a job that he's doing, spectacular job for the first year as a basketball coach. Too bad he's not on the Knicks. But, it shows you that these guys know about tournament play, and they got their guys ready to go. And these kids are up to the challenge, right? They're not, they're becoming men right before our eyes. And the experience that they're getting is hopefully going to, bring them back next year, because some of these guys should play another year, but we'll see what happens,
We will see. And again, the transfer portal and, kids staying at some of these, Villanova drafts a whole different class of kids. We talk about that often.
Right.
They don't go for those kids that are going to be one and done and the 5-star guys. They go for guys that they feel are going to be there 3 years minimum. They use the transfer portal pretty well to get 5th-year seniors, and and I think that's Jay Wright's model has been very effective. And in the tournament, as we've said, experience matters. And the younger teams, the one and done kind of thing is really getting to be passé. Look at Kentucky. I mean, John Calipari kind of invented this thing, and he's won 1 national championship, and I don't think one in the last 10 years.
I think the results that the players that the NBA are getting in the depth of players is actually helping that one and done idea go away. These guys coming into the NBA getting a lot of money, and there's a couple guys like Booker, and there are other guys that have come in and made a good John Morant. But I mean, you don't have more than 40 players that from the last 2 years that come out and are like top NBA players, right? And that was the deal when they started doing this, was like, the one and done players come out, Anthony Davis and all these guys and they're stars, right? And that's not happening, and so that idea will kind of balance its way out, because the NBA want players to be able to play today, not tomorrow, right?
Yeah, these kids might be better off going to the G League rather than the college for a year.
Right. And I always tell people, so some of these kids that you're watching now in the championship games coming up for UNC and Duke, they're good players, and they're probably maybe 1 or 2 of them going to be great, but there's not just the NBA out there for them nowadays. If they want to make money, they can go to Europe, they can go to Asia. Yeah. The G League doesn't really pay much, so they can go other places and become better and get more competition. And for instance, what the Ball family did for their kids, like things like going to Europe and playing in those leagues, it gave them, an opportunity to see how different the basketball can be, right? European wise. And so that experience has helped maybe not all their kids, but, one of them's right now in reaping the benefits, which is the youngest ball, right?
Yeah.
So, just because you're one and done, it doesn't mean that you're going to be one of the best NBA players. That's, and that's proof, right?
No, these kids would benefit. These kids would benefit from 3 years in school, I think, for sure, to develop and, take an insurance policy out, whatever.
Another thing, though, and we gotta be honest, Keith, is that they can benefit from 3+ years, but it depends where they play, right?
Oh yeah,
there's the conferences that they're playing in, and it depends on the coaches that are coaching them. Because there's a lot of kids that'll go 4 years and won't ever touch NBA court. Right.
John Calipari is a great example of, he goes into a kid's living room, and I'm a little off topic, but that's fine. He goes into a kid's living room and he can talk about all the big contracts his kids have signed in the NBA and all the kids he's put in the NBA. And, I put more, there's been years he's had more first round picks than he had starters on his team. But at the end of the day, he's coaching a college. And I think the University of Kentucky boosters may be putting a little heat on John Calipari to make a deep run into a tournament here at some point. You can't get knocked out by St. Peter's. He was 9-16 last year. There was no tournament the year before. Mm-hmm. He hasn't won a tournament. He's won one tournament. For all the hoopla about John Calipari and these 5-star basketball players he brings in there, one national championship in his whole run there.
Right, but I mean, to his credit, right, he has Booker and Anthony Davis as two of the top earning players in the NBA. So
again, though, I'm talking about the college guys who all they care about is wins and losses and national championships. Your boosters don't care how many NBA players you're putting.
Yeah, boosters do care because that NBA money is going to bring money back to the school, right?
That's a good point.
And we kind of forget that, the boosters, the way they're averaging out these big schools, UNC, Duke, Kentucky, UCLA, they need at least 2 guys to make it to the NBA every time they make a run to, through this tournament. Because if they don't get that money back from those kids when they become, NBA stars, right?
Right. Good point. But again, boosters also want to win college basketball games too. So you gotta have a balance there.
Well, as long as money's coming in, you can't be upset, but you do want to hang banners up at your schools because that's
they want to hang out at the Final Four in the suites and have a good time. That's
they'll get there eventually because they're loading up these teams with like 5-star players. So, if you get the right 5-star players in the mix, like Kentucky did for 2 years in a row before COVID happened, they're okay with that, man. That's something that money begets more money, right? Yeah. And sometimes they'll put that in the back burner just because they're getting that money back at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Calipari may be changing his model a little bit too, because I believe he had 3 transfer portal guys in his starting lineup this year. So they were higher classmen than just one and doneers, right? So
he needs depth. At the end of the day, he needs to balance out that team, not just have a bunch of kids running in circles, but he needs depth.
Yeah,
right. He needs experience from somewhere, So
I think he's a good enough coach that he's going to learn from the St. Peter's thing. And that team was just better prepared, wanted it more. They were more efficient and technically sound than his Kentucky Wildcats.
Look, we're not giving St. Peter's enough credit. No, I don't think anybody did. I didn't for sure. What St. Peter's has is what every NBA team is looking for. 2-3 point guards that are actually point guards, that are creative, that can find shots, make shots, that can rebound, that can run the floor, and they're not and they're not afraid of attacking the basket, no matter who's guarding it, right? And that's what every NBA team is looking for, because you don't have that many in the NBA right now. So what St. Peter's did with having at least 4 guards deep and always being able to put somebody in to substitute, that's a feat within itself that shows and proves you that the point guard position as a playmaker position is still a critical part of the game. And not everybody is a point guard. Not everybody is going to be able to handle the ball and make plays. And that's something that, the NBA has to realize, that just because you get a guy that can dribble a basketball doesn't make him a point guard. Someone like Ben Simmons is not a point guard, right? So things like this, when you see a team like St. Peter's running the gamut, people open their eyes like, what do they have that's different? What they have is 4 actual point guards. and two guys that are swing guards that can shoot the ball.
Yeah.
And then, moving that ball around on the team, they're pretty deep, and they made a deep run. Unfortunately, they weren't big enough to finish out this tournament, but they took shots that didn't go in. They weren't beat badly. The 20 points makes it look like, oh, they got stomped. They were not stomped. The shots just didn't fall. And again, if you live by the three, guess what? You're gonna die by the three.
Yeah, and they are very deep, as you said. And you talk about depth a lot. I know you do. Sometimes I think it's important, sometimes not. But that team he'd substitute out whole units. He'd go 5 for 5 sometimes. So He did use all his kids. But as far as where this ranks in NCAA lore of great stories, I've got it myself. Just to give you kind of some perspective, Carlos, I kind of rank it like third. I think number one is NC State in 1983 coming out of nowhere, beating Fly-Sama-Jama. To me, that's the number one, upset story or Cinderella story in NCAA history, followed by Loyola Marymount in 1990 after the Hank Gathers tragically dying on the court, making a run to the Elite Eight as an 11 seed, I think. And then I got St. Peter's right behind those two with this run to the Elite Eight, just kind of nosing out the Villanova national champion of 1980.
Wow.
As well.
So I would put them in the top 5, maybe even a top 10 list, because there's a lot of great moments in the championship. Time will tell, right? What are we going to see from St. Peter's next year? I think is what's going to kind of put them on this list of where they fall, because everybody always wants to see what happens afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So they already lost a coach.
Well, they're such a big winner here, but they're also a loser because they lose this great coach, and it was inevitable after he beat Kentucky, he was going to be gone.
Right. So if they're just a one and done, I mean they'll be in the top 10 for sure, but I don't know if they can. You can put them against the other teams because like the Georgetown team with Patrick Ewing. Beating the Houston team.
Those are teams that expected to win, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, look what Duke has done with the Bobby Hurley team and Christian Laettner and the last minute shot, things like that. Like, those are hard.
Good point.
Those are hard memories to let go when you see those guys playing 3-4 years back to back. Because you're growing with the team, right?
Say good morning, my friend Ray Phillips. Duke does have a great chance. We'll dive into the games here in just a second, Ray. Alan brings up Florida Gulf Coast, which is a good, but these guys, the only reason I have them behind St. Peter's and some other teams, they only made it to the Sweet 16. All these teams made it to the Sweet 16. I would put VCU and Butler getting to the Final Four as 10 and 11s in the same year ahead of these teams here. Well,
we don't even mention Gonzaga, right? Gonzaga did,
that's a great point. The first time Gonzaga got to the Final Four, I think they were like a 10 seed, and everybody was like, "Where the hell's Gonzaga?" Now they're a power, so we don't remember back to those days.
And listen, we all remember Don DeCal throwing them threes and just like nothing, but he didn't really make out to be a great NBA player. But he's a good announcer. He's a great announcer right now. So,
moving on to some of the other stories. In St. Peter's is a quasi Final Four story because they didn't get there, but we're still talking about him, obviously. Coach K's last run. You can't write a better story than he makes it to the Final Four in his last year. He hadn't been to a Final Four since I want to say 2011 or 12.
Right.
He's a long run for him.
And his name sticks out and keeps getting used, because he's one of the best coaches. But again, he coaches the USA basketball team, right? He's, he has an effect further than just the Duke teams that he puts out there. So, guys like him. And what's his name from San Antonio? His name slipped my mind just now. But they make an impact on the college team without not being in college, right? Or at all these colleges. So they're good coaches, man. You can't. That's something you can't refute. I think though, for Coach K, maybe a couple years ago he should have gone out. And he would have gone out in style, like a little,
how much better style can you go out now in this than going to the Final Four and potentially win a national championship?
If he wins a championship, he goes out in style, right? But if he falls short, then
just getting here and breaking John Wooden's record for getting to the Final Four isn't going out in style enough. It is for me.
I mean, you always, every competitive person and every person who's out there, they want to win the big one, right? That's the point, right? The records don't matter unless you're winning trophies.
Yeah. I mean, again, Coach K doesn't need me to validate his legacy at all.
Oh no, it's great. No matter what has happened and what he's going to go through, he's been a good coach, a great coach, and
he's done it. And he's done it the right way, because this team has not ever, that I'm aware of, had any kind of, I mean, I'm sure they've had some minor violations. Every school has something, but no major scandals, no anything like Kansas has gone through and Louisville. And heck, well, LSU is going through. On my college huddle the other day, I had an LSU fan tell me that Will Wade wasn't doing anything different than what every coach does in the country. And I'm like, are you nuts? Coach K's won more games than anybody else, and he's never had this type of allegation even remotely connected to him.
What
Coach guys who do it right. Jay Wright's another guy.
What Coach K's done too, that a lot of people kind of forget, and they tend to forget, is that he balanced out education, getting an education, with actually like being a good ball player, right? Being a balanced person, and being the best man that you can be. And you can tell that by all the players that came and visited him, and were part of his ceremony in the last game that he had at the arena. And you saw that these guys, we all know them, we see them. Some are professional coaches, some are, they do now, the commentators. They're very professional people.
Oh yeah,
right. And more than anything that a lot of people say about these Duke players is that they're good men. They're great men. They're part of society, and they're doing their job as that in the communities that a lot of some ball players, after they leave, college and NBA, just kind of fall away from,
Yeah, and you're right. That's something that people forget about, that his players, you don't read about them in the newspapers for, breaking into some place, stealing a TV, or, to buy drugs or whatever it is. You don't see that like you see with some other programs. We talked about that NC State team that shocked the world in '83. They had some guys that had some tough times after that on that team, so it's good. And he does build men, and that's part of the coach's job too. Yes, create good people as well as millionaires.
Mind you, he's always recruited so many good players that he's bench kids, he's kicked kids off the team.
Oh yeah,
he's kept kids from playing in the national championship game or in the tournament. So like he's not some regular Joe Schmo coach. He's sacrificed a lot as well, But one thing that when you say Coach K, or when you mention Coach K, you don't see a tarnish on his name. So
there's a lot of other guys all the time. Even John Wooden's got some tarnish on his name years later because of the ties to Stanton Gilbert and the money that was coming from the boosters there. And look, a great coach. I don't want to besmirch him, but everybody's got a little bit of tarnish, and Coach K's avoided it pretty much his whole career. And we'll talk about another guy like that in a second. Let's talk right now about their opponent, and then we'll make a pick in the game, I think. The story for North Carolina is, what, and I was one of them, was under-ranking them maybe all year because they didn't really have big wins until they beat Duke in Coach K's last game at Cameron Indoor.
I think that was a turning point right there.
And I was knocking the whole ACC. And the ACC's they were this close to having 3 teams in a Final Four. And Hubert Davis, again, was under a little bit of fire early in the year among some of the, North Carolina alum. I think he's done a great job stepping into another legend, Roy Williams, a guy who has got some taint to him, by the way, but great coach. And it's tough, especially when the guy's there in the stands. I know he's there for support, but it's got to be tough with Roy Williams in the stands every game.
Are you kidding me? It's like having your father watching the game. You know what I'm saying?
I think he's done a great job. People wanted to get on him for blowing a 25-point lead against Purdue. Well, he won the game going away in overtime. So what is the problem? And that builds character. Those
right.
Types. And you saw the raw emotion come out in him after that Elite Eight win, and I thought it was really good how he threw all the attention to his players. But what are your thoughts on North Carolina and Hubert Davis right now?
So Hubert Davis right now is riding on the high of these, 5-star players that he has on his team. Like he's getting everything out that he needs from them, and that's a good thing. Some of the teams can't say that from some of these 5-star players that they've had. mind you, we are forgetting that UNC, they didn't just make it to the Final Four. They had to beat a Baylor team that was on the brink of winning the last few seconds of the game. So as much credit as we give to the coaching staff, the players keep playing out. And that's the most important thing that you want from your players, is that there's no quit, right? And this UNC team has grit, right? They don't, if you look at them and you compare them to other UNC teams, you're like, you don't know if these kids are talented enough. You don't know if they're faster than them. But I tell you what, they have a lot of heart, and they're playing really gritty. But and that's important. And that win against Duke in the last game of the season, that was really, I think, a turning point for these guys, saying, hey man, we can stand and play with some of the best. And that's an important mindset to have, is that you can compete and that you can win, right? So
yeah, and they do have some good transfer players too. You're right, Alan. You can make an argument that this team's playing as well as any of these four teams through the tournament. I mean, right. They did exactly what they had to do against St. Peter's. I think I said it here on this show, and maybe on a Sports Huddle, or maybe both, that if St. Peter's, unless St. Peter's got blown out in the early minutes of the game, they would be a tough out in that elite game. And UNC did exactly what they had to do, and that was really to break that team's will. I mean, they fought hard, but they broke their will early, got out to that big lead.
UNC went out and did exactly what St. Peter's did, was run at you and play some defense and force you to make try to make the easy shots, and those shots just didn't fall for St. Peter's. Listen, Hubert Davis has been always known as one of the best defensive players in college, even on the Knicks and the NBA, and he's proven it out there that he's given these guys an edge and a mindset that they need to have to be out there competing. So is the team deep enough? That's all we have to. That's all we can go on. And right now they're riding on a wave, so it could go either way right now, right?
Yeah, this game itself, to pick the game, I mean, to me, it's a toss-up game. But I'm going to take the experienced coaching staff and Coach K. Now, again, there's some emotion running here. I said after they beat Michigan State, they came back and won that game in the final minutes with a 22-6 run. It's the kind of game that can propel you. And it has propelled Duke so far. They played very, very well. It's going to be a great – and look at this, we didn't even touch on this. This is again, Coach K's last ride. And who does he go up against the Final Four but his ultimate enemy through the course of the year in North Carolina. And they've never matched up in the NCAA tournament, much less the Final Four. Right. Great story. And I like Duke.
This is what footballers call a derby game, right?
Right. Right.
I'm going to go with UNC. I think they're going to ride the ride that the coach got them on. And these guys, the problem with both of these teams is they shoot too much in a low percentage on getting these shots going in. A
lot of these schools are doing the same thing. Yeah. The shooting in some of these games has just been atrocious.
Yeah, so I feel like Duke might shoot one too many shots, and UNC might get one or two rebound putbacks in. So, but it's a toss-up. I'm calling it 72-67. UNC wins.
Okay, I'll take. I'm going to go 74-71 Duke.
Yeah, 3 point. Yeah, we got no more than 5 points, right?
Let's move on to the other side of the bracket. We talked already a little bit about Villanova and some issues with injuries, which, unfortunately, they've had 2 years in a row with their guards. Last year they had problems with Gillespie, and then Moore might have been banged up too. They were down to their third or fourth string back guards in the tournament last year. And that really hampers them, as we talked about. But Jay Wright, I want to talk about Jay Wright a little bit. I talked about it the other night. And to me, Jay Wright, as Coach K steps away, Jay Wright is the best coach left coaching in the college basketball today, in my mind. He does everything the right way. Again, he's not tarnished in any way at all here at Villanova or Manhattan before that. He took Manhattan teams to the NCAA tournament. Nobody does that anymore. And he does it differently than these other great coaches do it. As we said, he brings in kids that he knows are going to improve through their career and play 3 years at a minimum there. And Keith, they're good men, I think.
Yeah, Keith, I think one thing that this is an East Coast bias because you don't get to see or have seen Jay Wright do what he does if you're in the middle of America much. Because again, he was in the school like Manhattan, Villanova, a good school, but it's also a private school, right? And the type of recruiting that he's doing to get these guys into Villanova, which is a great school, don't get me wrong, but usually never on the top of many guys' lists, right? And so these 5 stars, they're going to Duke, they're going to UCLA, they're going, all these other huge schools that are giving them money, shoe contract money and stuff like that. That's all nice and dandy, but you want to play for somebody and you want to become, a good ball player. Jay Wright's the guy you got to play for. I mean,
agreed.
And he's gonna maybe you're not gonna be on TV every weekend as the best game, but you see these guys play and then they'll run through a wall for him, and what I like about Jay Wright and his teams all across the board, just like Coach K, is the consistency. It's important for a young man, the age of 17, 18, go somewhere, play basketball, but also understand that getting an education, being a part of the community, being growing and making yourself a better person is vital and important to your future, right? And he does that, and you can see that again. You see these guys come back. You look at some of these coaches that have coached under him. They're now some of the best coaches coming up as well. And it's remarkable. And unfortunately, a lot of middle America, they might read about him, they might have seen him once or twice, but if you don't see it a lot every weekend during basketball season, you've missed out.
No, you're right. He's the least talked about great coach in this country. I mean, he's been to 4 Final Fours in the last
4 Final Fours,
won 2 national championships in the last 6. I mean, who's got a better record than that? Nobody.
I mean, even you talk about these guys at UNC and Duke. Even those coaches, Don Calipari, barely has that kind of record. Patino has barely that kind of record. So because what you're talking about is consistency, and you're talking about 4 in a row out of 6, man. That's tough. It's tough to even win your own conference, right? Yeah, and consistently, right?
And no less an authority than the legendary basketball writer Dick Hoops Weiss, who I had on the college basketball huddle the other night, agreed with me that Jay Wright is now the best coach in the country, and he thinks he's a lifer there now. That I'm sure the Knicks will make another run at him this year.
No, he ain't going to go to the Knicks.
But he's not leaving. He's not going to the NBA. He's not going anywhere. No. I believe he'll finish his career here.
He should finish in Villanova. I don't understand why.
I agree. I've talked a lot the last few weeks with Coach K leaving, and Jim Boeheim will be out in the next couple of years. These guys, 43, 46 years at a school. You're never going to see this again. Jay Wright's a great example. He's been there a long time, but it took him a long time to get there. He's 60 or 61 years old. He's been there 21 years. He's not getting 40 years in at Villanova, and you're just not going to see these runs by these great coaches, not 40-year runs anymore.
Right. And Syracuse sounds like maybe an enticing, school to go to, because their boosters are actually pretty good, and they're always, getting at least 2 or 3 recruits in there that are in the top 10, right, in the New York area. But even then, even going to a bigger school, getting better recruits, that even doesn't sound like him, right?
No, he
so
fits,
it's like
the school. He fits the school. He's synonymous with the school now, and he's probably the best coach in history for Villanova. I love Raleigh Massimino, but Jay Wright coaches him under the table, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and only one other coach is better than him, and he's not even playing men's basketball; he's playing women's basketball, and that's Arietta.
Yeah,
Gino.
Yeah. Agreed. Let's move on to the other side of this game, Kansas. Now, Kansas and Bill Self, another consistent program, but they've been playing under the cloud of this investigation from the NCAA and the FBI for
it's a shame, right?
Years now, right? Louisville's gotten hit with sanctions and lost their coach. Arizona fired their coach in the same probe. Nothing's happened here at Kansas. Maybe it's not there. Maybe there's no fire there. Maybe it's all smoke, but I don't know. I just got this feeling. Bill Self is not a guy that ever gives me, he's a great coach, but I'll get that feel-good feeling that I get from a Jay Wright or a Coach K. I get that car salesman feeling from Bill Self. And does this help lift the cloud, or does it just bring it?
No, I mean, like everybody carries luggage, right? And his luggage is, unfortunately, he's got some old luggage that he needs to get rid of. And
there were some probes before this one in his career too.
And I mean, the thing is that the team he's got is being
they're the best. I think top to bottom, they're the best team in this Final Four.
Like I was watching it and I'm like, wow, like only team that I saw that was actually like almost played similar to them, a similar game, was Baylor. But Kansas looks like they're stronger and deeper than Baylor, actually. Yeah, in the style that they play, not anything else, as far as being able to run and shoot and set up and getting the rebounds, and they're playing kind of a full game, right? And getting everything out of your team. And Self is getting everything out of his players right now, and they're riding the high as well. I don't know if this is going to be. I don't know if they're going to hit a wall, and Villanova might be that wall because Villanova is a little bit more consistent and stronger in their own game. So I think they're going to force Kansas to play a game that they're not used to playing.
Yeah, I'm going to go with one of your go-to points here. I just don't think Villanova is deep enough here to stay with Kansas in this game. I think they'll battle. Excuse me. I think they'll battle, obviously, but I think Kansas is going to be too much for them. They go too deep, and I think Kansas will win this game, probably going away at the end. I'm going to call it 80-68.
Oh, wow. That's a lot, Keith.
I know. I love Coach Wright. I love Coach Wright, but I think Kansas is too much. If Morales and Moore were playing, this would be a total.
Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying, but I feel like Jay Wright will have these guys playing on edge, man. Like, because of missing a player, because they've been there before. They can make their own name. They can put their name higher on an NBA draft pick. Like I feel like Jay Wright has enough as a coach to motivate these guys to win one out and get to the final. Maybe the final might be like that, but I think they beat Kansas.
Yeah, the problem is, I mean, again, he went 6 deep. One of those 6 is out. He's going to have to go to a guy he's given, one of these guys that he's given very little time to. Is going to have to come up big in this game, and if they do, then they'll have a chance. But
all they need is two guys and their starting 5 to play all out, to balance out. The problem with Kansas is they shoot too much, man.
Yeah, well, that's true.
They shoot way too much, and not everything goes in. The problem there is that when they catch fire, everything does go in.
All right, give me a winner.
I have Villanova. I got them at 75-70. But it's going to be. I think it's going to be closer than you think.
Good morning, Bob Hildeberg. He's all over the Jayhawks. So you're going to take who? Villanova?
Yeah, I feel Villanova and UNC will probably go to the final.
All right, so we got 2 different teams, so we're definitely going to have a different winner, and I'm going to pick Duke for a lot of the same reasons I picked North Carolina.
This is a problem with being a Dookie. You're going to pick. You're not. You can't shy away from the big D.
I'm not a Dookie. I'm a rooter for a great story, and Coach K.
Yeah, no, it is a great story. But let me tell you something, Keith. This championship run has been filled with a lot of great stories, right?
Oh yeah, just a great tournament story.
You got Hubert Davis's first championship game as a first timer. You got St. Peter's.
He's only the 5th coach ever to get to the Final Four in his first year, if something like that. So great point. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then you got St. Peter's getting all the way to the 8, right? I mean You have Coach K. Like, you have a lot of small.
Yeah, Miami's run was a great run under
Miami. Yeah,
nice run there.
So, and you have everything flip flop from the regular season. You don't see Gonzaga, you don't see Houston, you don't see Baylor, you don't see any SEC teams. Everything is totally not what it was, supposed to be, right?
And at the same time, we got 4 blue blood programs there. Give me a winner of your King, Carolina and Villanova.
Probably UNC by 3 points over Villanova.
All right, North Carolina is your champion. Duke is mine. So You'll have
watch Jay Wright prove us right again. That's going to be on a T-shirt, right?
Yeah,
Jay Wright
is
right.
Disappointed for Jay Wright to come out of here with the national championship.
You know what? If he does, kudos to them, right?
Yep, absolutely. I was going to see if before I moved on, there was a couple of comments, but I don't know where they went here. Do I want to get them up? I don't know. Alan's talking about Cade Cunningham at Oklahoma State being the kind of a good example of number one pick. And I mean, we were talking about some of this earlier, but Cade Cunningham is a great player for sure.
I mean, some of these players I want to see in college basketball maybe one more year, especially after this COVID stuff that's happening. Like, they miss not playing the tournament, not being out there playing basketball is a detriment to their their level that they can get to.
Yeah, I think to the St. Peter's point we were talking when he talks about Florida Gulf Coast, Oral Roberts. I give all those teams credit. UMBC beating Virginia in the first round is a great story as well, but that's as far as they went. That's the problem with that story. They were done there. And he would have St. Peter's in the top 10. So,
think about that, Keith. It's the first time UNC and Duke are playing, bro, in the championship team.
That's mind-boggling to me that the number of times these two teams have been in the tournament, they've never played each other. It's amazing.
I'm not even gonna lie. I would laugh at those Duke fans and UNC fans like your team ain't going nowhere, and this is the first year that they're gonna go somewhere, and they gotta play each other in a derby match.
Right?
How great is that?
Let's move on. Well, we got a few minutes. We still got 15 or 18 minutes or so. Let's move on to the NFL a little bit. Some big stories this week. The biggest is Bruce Arians kicking himself upstairs, giving the job to Todd Bowles.
Did I not tell you they did?
After the rumors of Brady trying to negotiate his way to Miami, is there a big mystery? I don't think there's any mystery or there's any conspiracies or dramas here. I think I know the story. What are your thoughts first before I dive into mine?
All right. First of all, I said this last year, even when Brady came on the team, and we were talking, Mac and Jack, and even on Sports Scope. Tom Brady does not get along with Bruce Arians. They just two competitive guys.
Yeah,
and it's ran its course.
Two different philosophies as well, by the way.
Right, and it's ran its course, and now they have an opportunity. Tom Brady has an opportunity to come back and play, be more comfortable with what's going on and with his offensive coordinator. I forget his name. Sorry.
Yeah, look at that. Leftwich,
yeah. So and now Leftwich has an opportunity to prove himself as a coach, right? As a good coach, especially an OC, because now that they got a new head coach and he's defensive minded, he's not gonna poke the bear, right? He's not gonna get in on those guys and be like, hey, this is how we're gonna run the offense. No, he's gonna let Brady and Leftwich do what they do, which is spread the ball around, right? And they got the team to do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was a problem that Arians and Brady had early on in their relationship. The year they won the Super Bowl is that Arians wants to throw the ball down the field all the time, and Brady just wants to find the guy that's open and, as you said, get everybody involved.
Yeah.
I kind of look at. I don't think there's any conspiracy here myself.
No conspiracy, just misunderstanding.
I think Brady might have retired thinking Arians would get himself out of there because they'd be depleted. Maybe, I don't know. But I think I take Bruce Arians, who's not my favorite guy. He thinks, sometimes he thinks he's got to show he's the smartest guy in the room. He didn't invent the game, But I take him at his word here that he wanted to get between his health issues, and he's got really nothing left to prove. Done everything in football and college and in the pros. That he wanted to give Todd Bowles a chance to succeed and
redeem himself.
The best chance for him to succeed was with giving him a team with Tom Brady at quarterback. So I think there's nothing more to it than that. His health issues, not wanting to continue. Maybe there was a discussion and Brady said, look, I'd be just as happy if he went upstairs. I don't doubt he might have said that to somebody in the organization. But if Brady were making the decisions here, like some people seem to think,
LeBron James of football,
Byron Leftwich would be the quarterback or the coach, and not Todd Bowles.
I mean, we got to be real here, and the thing that Tampa Bay still has is a decent defense, right? They've lost pieces on both sides of their team, but and the coach, he gets everything out of their defense. Now sometimes the scheme is suspect. We've seen that in a few games. He over commits, but that's part of how his defense works as well, right? So that whole Wagner move though from St. Louis.
Well, that's
I
good.
was maybe thinking he might go to Tampa Bay, but there's still time to see what Tampa Bay can pick up on free agent in the draft. So Todd Bowles is a good coach to be there. Yeah. He's gonna let Leftwich and Brady run the course. And look, Fournette might get 1,000 yards this year. Instead of being in it,
he hasn't resigned though. Did he resign?
Yeah, he's back. He's back on the team.
That. All right. Well, that's a big move for them because I don't know if Dave Guyette's still here or a resident Buffalo fan, but I don't know how Buffalo doesn't go after a guy like Leonard Fournette who fits their offense perfectly.
Let's stop talking about Buffalo, please.
Yeah,
I know they're the only team that plays in New York, which breaks my heart. But I cannot understand what they're doing up there, man. They talk about they want to be a championship team, but they keep going backwards.
For my own selfish reasons, I hope they keep running it that way. So that's what we like to see. Let's talk about Bobby Wagner for a second. He gets a 5-year deal to go to the Braves. I think that's a lot. I don't really.
He's not that old, Keith. He's not that old.
What's he, 32?
No, yeah, I think 31, 32, yeah.
See what he is, Bobby Wagner. He gets a 5-year deal worth $50 million, which is a lot, but trying to find his age here if I can find it quickly. To me, again, the Rams have had a pretty good offseason in my mind, and this team is loading up and going to be a serious contender to win 2 in a row. Now, Matthew Stafford plays at the level he played last year.
Listen, I know they lost Von Miller, and Von Miller, I'm not as he's a good player.
31.
But you add in Wagner to the mix, that's another level, man. Because he's going to stop a lot of plays before even happening. You know what I'm saying? With tight ends, and on top of that, he attacks the quarterback. So it's going to be good for LA. They're going to have a better opportunity of getting back into the playoffs for sure.
Going back real quick, I missed this when Alan put it up. He's a little surprised Leftwich didn't get the job over Bowles. I just think it's that Bowles has been a more loyal lieutenant to Bruce Arians, going back to the Cardinals and whatnot. So I think that's why he gets the job.
Not just a loyal lieutenant, but he's been a good coach regardless of the teams he's been on, right? And Leftwich hasn't been a coach yet at that level. So if you're going to turn over the reins, you want to give it to somebody who's been there and someone who's being a first quarterback, being quarterback coach or offensive coordinator, first time is tough. So it's not like he's Bieniemy, right? So
no, that's true. And to Anthony's point here, good morning, Anthony. By the way, good to have you in. I don't know where we see guys. Yes, there are cases where some of these old guys chase money and not rings, but I think it's usually the opposite. And you can't say Bobby Wagner's chasing money. He's going to the team that's going to be the favorite to win the NFC crown next year, I would say. So
that money helps, though, right?
Yeah, money always helps. Tom Brady didn't go chasing money. Tom Brady's made lots of money in his career. Could have made more, and we've had that discussion because he would take less to make the team better. And it's not that he didn't get paid, but he went to win a ring somewhere else. That's what he had to prove that he could win without his head coach, Bill Belichick. So I think most of these guys that you see, the older guys moving around, they want to win a ring. They've made money through their career.
Right.
And it's not that money's not important. Money's important to everybody. And it's always a factor, but I think they want to win. Alan said the Cowboys have done nothing and they're still the best team in the NFC East. I don't know if
they're the best team in the NFC East.
I don't know if that's saying a lot either. So,
you know what, Alan? What happens if the Eagles and the Commanders are the 1 and 2 and Dallas is the 3?
They're not making the playoffs. That's for sure.
None of these guys are gonna.
Look at this division.
Oh God!
Even throw the Giants in there because the division is always in such disarray. I don't doubt any of these 4 teams could compete for the top spot in this division. I really don't.
This division is so out of whack right now.
I mean, it's look at it. That's just a matter.
You know what? It's become the new AFC South, right?
That's the problem.
Right? It's like reverted to the new AFC South, right? It's like only 2 teams are good and even them in the playoffs, they don't make it further than the first round, right?
Yeah, and I've got to tell you, Alan, I've defended Dak Prescott for a lot of years now as being one of the best quarterbacks. And
he is a good quarterback.
But his decision making in that playoff game last year shows you what he's lacking that some other guys have.
Yeah.
The fact that he doesn't, they win that game if he just hands the ball to the referee at the end of the game.
Look, another thing that doesn't help Dak is that running game, man. Like, you're paying so much for this guy, and he hadn't gotten more than 20 touches in like 10 games or something like that.
That's because they got one of the other best running backs in the game.
Pollard. Yeah, but I mean, like, he's not your star quarterback. He's not the guy you're paying the big bucks to, man. You got to figure that out in Dallas, man.
Yeah, well, you're probably right. You know, again, I've said this forever. That team will never win as long as Jerry Jones is running. Everything goes through Jerry. It's not going to happen. Alan thinks Philly's their best competition. Washington's a dumpster fire. Maybe.
A lot of people always – this is what happens every year, right? Oh, DC's – they're not a good team. Look, they have a great coach. They have a good defense. They would have a great defense if the defense stayed healthy.
Yeah.
And they have an offense that is unpredictable, which is scary if you're only going to score 14, 17 points a game. So, you know.
I will give Alan credit. He is true to his school all the time, I will
say.
I
would trade if I'm New York, I'm trading all my picks.
Wrong guy to ask this question to, Alan. He would trade every pick he ever had for any of the teams he likes and never have a draft pick ever.
Like, our teams in New York cannot draft well. They don't do a good job drafting.
What makes you think the last 10 years? Better job trading them?
We don't do good at anything right now, but you know, we're not even playing in New York, so what does it matter?
Well, I got to put this up because the first thing I see is Carlos. I agree. So that's they need to let Tony Pollard run free. You're talking about the other guy, though. You're talking about Zeke, right? He's talking about Pollard. I think Pollard's better than Zeke.
Listen, I think the consensus in Dallas is that Pollard is better than Zeke, but Zeke's the one getting paid more than Pollard. So the problem is they need to fix that. You either get rid of Zeke, right, and pay Pollard, or you get rid of Pollard and get something back from him. But you can't have Pollard as your number one running back if he's not the one getting paid as a number one running back.
Well, you got to stay healthy, too. I think he's had some injury issues on and off. So hear me out on the topic. Baltimore tag Lamar next year and draft a quarterback next year. Trade Lamar. That's a lot for me to figure out here.
Well, Lamar is going to be coming into a big payday no matter what happens. So if Baltimore is willing to buck up and he's going to stay with Harbaugh, do it. If not, let him go. Just let him go. Enough teams need a quarterback where he can go make money and do his thing. And look, if you're Baltimore, you better find out. Where you can find a new offensive coordinator because Roman ain't the guy.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And as far as Lamar goes, he's gonna
make money. Lamar is better than Watson, right? He's proven that. He's injury prone, but he's proven that, right?
Yeah, I just need to see him win some big games. But again, it's his defense. He hasn't had a lot. He's had to do it all on his own.
Yeah, because Roman's running this high school offense, man.
Yeah.
Well, don't get me wrong. It worked. It worked for like.
Let's see. Roman. I think Greg Roman has some affiliation with the Shanahan family, doesn't he? Pretty sure. I understand your comments there. Gettleman's gone. You don't have a terrible decision making.
That's not true. We got the old Buffalo heads there making the decisions, and that's not a good thing, to be honest with you.
Watson ruined the quarterback market. We're going to talk about Watson real quick. Not so much about Watson, but I want to talk about this before we wrap up today. That'll probably do it for us. I might have one other odds in it. Right now, the Cleveland Browns are talking about keeping Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson on this roster next year. And I can't think, other than outside of signing Deshaun Watson in the first place, I can't think of a worse decision the Cleveland Browns could make than to keep Baker Mayfield and Watson together next year.
You know what?
It's going to be wrapped up in your quarterback. And number two, Baker's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, the problem is Baker's attitude, right? Listen, I mean, San Francisco right now and Cleveland have the same problem. They can't get rid of the cap guy, right? The guy that's holding them back, and then the cap space. Who's willing to take that $18 million plus contract from the Cleveland Browns? And who's willing to take that 25, 27 for Garoppolo?
I'm not.
Look, even if these teams cut these guys the penalties so high, that they're willing to keep them on the roster. Look, draft day is going to be interesting. Baker and Garoppolo will probably be moved on draft day. So,
well,
that's not,
Anthony, you got a point, Anthony, and maybe they'll hang on to him until they find out he'll get suspended. I mean, I went on I had my vlog last week was about Sean Watson, the Browns, and lack of character guys that you bring in, and how stupid this was. And I got people calling me a racist, and I'm like, well, just because he's a black quarterback, I mean, he's the guy who got 22 allegations still out there against him, and I'm not the guy who decided whether he was going to be white or black. It's not a race thing. If you're not a good character guy, you're not a good character guy.
You know what Tomey's wife, you heard about what she did?
I did. Yeah.
Talking about canceling her season tickets and supporting the Cleveland Browns. That's Tomey's carry a big name in that community, man.
Listen, this fan base is split at best on whether they want this guy in town. And I know that there are allegations. Nothing's been proven. And this,
right.
Some of the comments that I got last week, I get it. But if it's one person, even two people, I can give you the benefit of doubt. When there's 22, something happened somewhere.
Yeah, but Keith, the problem is too, like, look at the situation with Tiger Woods. They had over 50-something women say things about, being with him or somehow or another. Look, I feel like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to, be a bearer of bad news, but you're gonna pay a guy to play sport, pay the guy to play the sport. If you want a guy to be a good guy, maybe you're gonna have, maybe you have to look further than money being something that you have to pay him for him to be a better guy, because that you can't pay a guy to be the best person in the world. You just can't.
No,
that
don't
come from money. You can act like you're one of the best people in the world. That's what Hollywood's for.
You can't teach character.
You can't, man. And look, and people make mistakes. And people make mistakes. But look, at the end of the day,
when
you're in front of a camera and you're an athlete or even a Hollywood star, aka Will Smith, that one little mistake carry a lot of ripples and cause a lot of waves, man.
Oh yeah, he cost himself a lot of money at the box office for sure. That's a drift.
That's a lot of problems that we got to deal with.
Not at the box office. I'm sorry. Getting those top jobs to get the top box office draws. He's hurt himself big time in the industry.
Well, you know what, Keith? One of the things about Will Smith that a lot of people tend to forget is that he has made himself a lot of money on his name and on his own production, for doing his own productions. Yeah. So he's had a lot of help from people in Hollywood, but this. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. But like I said, you're on camera and the repercussions are huge when you make small mistakes like that,
Yeah, he made 22 mistakes. I agree, Anthony. He made 22 mistakes. And Alan, to your point here, quick, we got to wrap up quick. But this is exactly what I was talking about in my vlog last week. If he wins, it'll go away. Ray Lewis being involved in a double homicide went away because he was a great player, and the Ravens came back and won a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So, the NFL reward some of these guys not for their character, but just for their play in the field. And character does matter to a lot of the people who are watching these games. So
yeah, and look, fans, just enjoy the game for what it is. People make mistakes in life, and there's consequences that they have to pay, and we don't have to be the judge of that. We don't.
But I want to see the consequences paid. Ray Lewis walked away scot-free.
Did he really?
Yeah.
You see Ray Lewis as a head coach in the NFL right now?
Oh, Ray Lewis was never going to be a head coach. How much has he made as a TV commentator talking about how Tom Brady should be suspended for life for splitting airs out of football after he's involved in a double homicide? Come on.
Okay, how about this for some medicine, Keith? Not as much as Tony Romo.
Well, that again, Tony didn't kill him.
And I would believe Ray Lewis and his football acumen as a defensive player more than I would believe Tony Romo and his football acumen as an offensive player and a QB.
I don't disagree with that even a little bit. I agree. Right. But again, bad guys, we root for them,
No, it's not rooting. Like, again, this isn't okay. You could be a fan of your team and your sport and your athlete. But again,
I had my own serial killer on my team, so I understand the dynamics of what goes on, and they need to be off teams and in prison if that's where they need to be.
Listen, like, at the end of the day, Tony Gonzalez is still part of a Super Bowl winning championship.
Well, Big Ben wasn't 15-1 his rookie year, and the allegations were long after his rookie year.
Yeah, it was after. Yeah, but
the allegations have followed him around a little bit. So a little bit.
At the end, look, that's life, man. There's good and there's bad, right?
There is.
Let's just be fans and enjoy the game and enjoy the guys being on the court, on the field, doing their thing, right? How about that?
We'll leave it there for today. Thank you, Carlos. Very good show today. Thanks for being in. We'll talk more.
Thanks for having me. Everybody have a great weekend.
The Mad New Yorker for TGI Sports Talks. Are You Serious? Right here on Northeast Streaming Sports. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.